just dropped the guy off Berlin Turnpike, and all I didn't do anything special. Gave him a ride, had a conversation with him, and he basically told me, because I'm familiar with the area, we were talking about the shithole hotel he had to stay in, that I happen to know the history on it. And he was telling me, unfortunately, his truck got towed. And I was like, I just sounded sympathetic. I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope the rest of your day is better. Had a nice conversation with him. It was not really a long trip. It was probably like a 10-minute trip. But I sounded sympathetic to a situation. Had a good conversation with him. And the guy hands me $10 cash. And he told me he probably only made like $4 or $5 on this trip, which he was correct. I made like $5 on the trip. So I really appreciated that, but this is how you get decent tips. And this is not the biggest tip I've ever gotten, a $10 bill. It's not the biggest. Probably the biggest lately probably was $20. And it wasn't because the performance of my driving. 9 out of 10, you're not going to get tip because you're necessarily a great driver. You're more likely going to get a good tip for the conversation. I noticed that more and more with these passengers. As long as you get them to point A and point B and you're not driving reckless, of course. But if you just drive like you're supposed to drive, which I drive pretty much the speed limit. I mean, on the highway, I'm not going to act like a perfect angel. I might do, 5 to 10 miles over. Meanwhile, people are doing like 15 miles over, blowing by me. But I just try to drive normal. I don't drive reckless. On the roads, I'm driving normal speed. I do slow down, what I notice, when it's raining, where other people might drive a little faster than me when it's raining. And as long as you're doing that, you can still get away with blowing through yellow lights and doing an occasional U-turn. The passenger's not going to really care because you still got them there relatively safely. They're going to care about the conversation. The average passenger wants to have a good conversation. And that's on every tier of these apps. And especially if you're private. If you're private, they also want to still continue to have a good conversation. They don't want somebody that's necessarily going to be quiet unless, and you got to feel people out with this one, because occasionally you'll get a business person that doesn't want to talk. Occasionally you'll get a young person, usually a college student, that has their earbuds in. You usually know if they want to talk or don't want to talk. You gotta like read the room. I think that's relatively normal to read the room. But when somebody gets in the car, and I started the conversation, usually I let the passenger initiate the conversation. I start the conversation because when I picked them up in this real scummy motel, and I noticed there was a school bus in there, and I never seen school buses pick people up in that particular hotel location. I was like, wow, I never noticed buses come in here. And he immediately started with the conversation at that point. He's like, yeah, I didn't know this place was that scummy either. And I was like, yeah, I knew about this place because this, and this. That's how it started. That's all it took to turn a $5 trip into a $15 trip. And whenever possible, I don't pressure people into giving me a cash tip. I don't. And this is why. You could talk yourself out of getting a tip altogether. If it's more convenient for them to tip in the app, even though you might not get it or you get it the next day, let them tip you on that. This is from my experience. Let them tip you on that. But whenever possible, give them options. And I do it in this order: Zelle, over Cash App and PayPal, and Venmo. Because Zelle's not going to take a percentage out. They're all shady. All those payment processor things, they're all shady. But I would take Zelle over PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, any of those. If they absolutely don't want to do Zelle, then I would go to, like, if you could, like, your own Square processor if you have one, or the other ones, Cash App, PayPal. But honestly, your goal is to have them all in the future. Have them all. If nothing else, you can get tipped, but it's also great for if you're private driving, because you want to make money whenever possible off these apps for obvious reasons. You get it all. And I did notice that Uber's going to start testing out their taking cash thing, and somebody chimed in one of my comments, was like, well, what's the difference? You guys taking cash or they're taking cash? The difference is they're taking a big cut, you idiot. I hate to call my subscribers idiots, but a subscriber actually, I don't even know if he was a subscriber. I'm not going to say he was a subscriber. Let me retract that. It could just be a passer througher, people that just come check your one video out and they're about their life. But he literally said that. And I didn't delete the comment. But it's like, what's the difference? You guys taking cash or Uber's taking cash? The difference is when you take cash through the app, it now makes your app negative that amount. Where if I take cash, I get the full amount and I don't get fees taken out. Now you're getting fees taken out and you're negative in your app that amount of money. And then God forbid if you punch it in with the amount included in the app, Uber takes that as, oh, we get to take your tip now too. Let's say the trip's 25. Let's say the trip's 20, but he gives you 25 in cash, and you make a mistake and put in that you received 25. Now Uber takes that as, oh, we're keeping that. You think they're going to deduct or subtract your tip? No, they'll take out the fees out the whole 25. Mark my words, that's what they're going to do. They're going to take out money out the full amount if you make a mistake. Or if they're telling you don't argue with the customer if they don't have the full amount. So the trip is $20. The passenger only has 16. He gives you 16. You type in, he only gave you 16. What's to say that they're not going to finagle and play with the numbers? They're Uber. They're shady. I'm starting to believe there's like secret Uber employees going around, going on People Like Me channel and saying this dumb shit. I really do. I believe there's like secret people that go around, because it's always a commenter that has no picture. They just got like a letter, and then they just want to comment some dumb shit like that. And when you go to look at their profile, there's no videos, there's no nothing. It's almost like they made it up just to mess with content creators. Let me know how you guys feel about that, because I'm feeling like Uber and Lyft, I don't want to leave Lyft out of the game, because Lyft is, once upon a time, I think when Lyft came out, I don't think they intended to be as shady as Uber, but the present day, Lyft is just as shady as Uber. And it's very unfortunate because when they came out, they were supposed to be the company to revolutionize rideshare. They were going to be different. And I want to say this about the positive thing about Lyft is they were the first ones to allow us to get tips in the app at all. Even though they may skim the tips, they were the first ones to allow tips. If you remember, if you're a rideshare driver, a veteran, I should say, Uber was lying to passengers saying, don't tip the driver, it's included. They actually were pushing that bullshit. They were like, don't tip the driver, it's included. So for years, the first couple of years, people weren't tipping the drivers because they thought it was included. And they thought that Uber was an honest company that would actually give the drivers a percentage for a tip. It was a lie. It was a straight up lie. I'm just looking because I see this cop behind me. I want to see if he follows me. Okay, he did. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm always wary as a cop. You ever be like that? Even though you don't really break the law, you're always wary that they're gonna pull you over for some dumb shit. But yeah, this is the reality is, whenever possible, the moral of the story is just try to have the ones that do want to talk, try to give them, I'm not saying kiss their ass, I'm just saying have a good conversation. And again, you could turn a $5 trip into a $15 trip simply by having a good conversation. You know, I wish I would have got that passenger to check out my channel, but he was in a rush and he just threw the $10 in my hand. He rushed out because he was at the tow place trying to get his truck back. But I appreciate him for giving me that tip for a quick conversation. And I appreciate everybody that did subscribe to the channel and everybody that didn't, even you passerbyers, even you haters. It all helps the channel grow. Let's keep it real. And I want to say thank you for your support. But if you really want to support for free, subscribe, like, comment, click the bell icon, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.